I'm Mariana von Mohr, and I'm a postdoc at Royal Holloway. And together with Louise, who's also a postdoc at Universidad, we will present some work in collaboration with Katerina Potopoulou at UCL on social touch deprivation during COVID-19. So I'll start with some introduction on why touch and what was our main motivation for wanting to investigate this during the pandemic. Then I'll present some results on what type of touch do we get and want during COVID-19, as well as its effects on loneliness and anxiety. And then Louise will present some findings on ways that we can reduce anxiety caused by social distancing, as well as any kind of substitutes for touch. So first of all, why touch? Well, touch is the first sense to develop ontogenetically. It's also mutual. So when you touch someone, both the receiver and provider, you experience a touch. And it's also a substrate for the social brain, being the initial modality that enables us to distinguish self from other. So in sum, touch is more than a simple sensorial stimulation of the skin. In particular, interpersonal touch has been shown to play a crucial role in development, having beneficial effects on mental health and premature infants. There's also the protective effect of maternal stroking. So for example, maternal stroking over the first weeks of life has been shown to reduce the association between prenatal depression and infant adverse outcomes. There's also an important role in interpersonal communication. So for example, Hartenstein and colleagues showed that different types of touch elicit different emotions. And Louise recently showed that in particular, affective touch conveys positive emotions and intentions. And finally, affective touch is known to attenuate the perception of pain. However, context matters. So for example, in 2016, Charlotte Krache and colleagues, they showed that affective touch was able to modulate the N1, which is one of the earliest responses to nauseous stimuli. And but such effects depended on attachment style. And an important aspect of this study was that the touch was delivered by a stranger. So in 2018, we did a similar study, but this time we had a romantic partner delivering the touch. And we found that affective touch was not able to only reduce or attenuate the N1, but also the N2 and P2, which are later components of pain in response to nauseous stimuli, and also reflect like the affective and conscious aspects of pain. So this also tells us about the important role of touch when it's delivered by a close other. But what about social pain? So it's been suggested that the social pain system has evolved from the physical pain system, being co-opted to signal threats to social relationships and to motivate social reconnection. There's also an overlap in brain regions that code the affective components of physical pain, which are also activated in response to social pain, such as using the cerebral paradigm. And these regions correspond to the anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula. And endogenous opiates have also been shown to reduce separation distress, as well as to be released in response to tactile contact, and with eliciting both rewarding and analgesic effects. So in 2017, we decided to do a study on whether affective touch could reduce feelings of social exclusion. So we use the cerebral paradigm, which is a ball tossing online game. And for example, I'm one of the participants. And at first, Louise and Katerina are tossing me the ball, but at some point they stop. And that's known to elicit strong feelings of social exclusion, which is a form of social pain. And what we did was that we delivered the affective touch before they played this online ball tossing game. And we showed that affective touch was able to reduce feelings of social exclusion. So this was actually one of our main motivators for wanting to study touch during the pandemic, or the lack of touch, because what would happen, for instance, if we had no soothing touch, and what are the implications for regulating emotions such as pain? So indeed, during COVID-19, we have to make changes in our core social habits, such as practicing social distancing, and in order to attenuate the growth of COVID-19. And even though technology has allowed us to have some sense of social connection, so for instance, with Zoom meetings, not only for work, but also for social gatherings, this has been at the expense of touch. So in 2020, April 2020, we did a survey. This was in collaboration with Royal Holloway, so Universidad and UCL. And we recruited 1,746 participants. These were all across the world, but mostly from UK, France, Greece, Mexico, and Argentina. And most of them were women. So for the first part of our study, we had three main questions. The first one was, what kind of touch did we get and did we miss during lockdown? Second one, is the lack of touch related to worse psychological well-being? And does wanting or missing touch during COVID-19 depend on attachment style? So to answer the first question, we first asked participants to answer three questions using a visual analog scale ranging from 0 to 100. And they had to answer how much touch you were getting before COVID-19, how much touch were you getting in the past week, so during COVID-19, and how much touch would you have wanted to experience in the past week, so again, during COVID-19. This was answered in relation to three types of touch. The first one, intimate touch, which involved kisses, hugs, caress from a partner or close family. Friendly touch, which involved hugs and high fives from friends. And professional touch, handshakes and taps on the shoulder. So to answer the second question, we computed a new variable, which we labeled lack of touch. And this was computed by obtaining the difference score between before the touch that people were getting before COVID and during COVID. And this was in a way to obtain the kind of baseline for touch, because for instance, people might be reporting that during COVID, they're experiencing little touch, but it might have been the case before as well. So this lack of touch was computed in relation to intimate touch, friendly touch, and professional touch. And then we checked whether these three types of touch were able to predict anxiety and loneliness. And we were expecting, in particular, intimate touch as it seems to be the most powerful one. Then finally, we wanted to see whether wanting touch depended on attachment style, because indeed different people might crave touch to different degrees, and in fact, some people might not crave it at all. So here we use the experiences in close relationships questionnaire to measure attachment style dimensions. These consist in two dimensions, anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. And anxious attachment is characterized for the need for emotional closeness, where it's about rejection and overdependence on others. And here we were expecting that the more the anxious attachment, the more they would have craved or wanted to experience touch in the past week. And in turn for attachment avoidance, which is characterized by need for emotional distance, resistance to trusting and depending on others, we were expecting that the higher individuals scored in attachment avoidance, then the less they would have wanted to experience touch during COVID. So in terms of our results, here we have plotted in the y-axis the amount of touch, except for this one right here, that it's instead the amount of lack of touch. And these are plotted in relation to intimate, friendly, and professional touch. So first of all, we can see that there was an overall reduction of touch experience during COVID as compared to before. This was expected, of course. And we can see that the most lack of touch was friendly, followed by professional, and then intimate touch. And we can see that even though there was a reduction in intimate touch, it was not as much. And this could be because people are still, they are with their close family or partners, some of them at least, in the same household. And then we see between touch experience before COVID and wanting to experience touch in the past week, it's very interesting because we see a similar pattern in both. So it's as if people wanted to go back to before COVID and have like similar touch that they were obtaining before. And then it's just worth highlighting that intimate touch was still the most experienced during COVID, but at the same time, it was still the most wanted. So this also speaks about the importance of this kind of touch in our lives. So going back to our other question on does the lack of touch predict loneliness and anxiety, we can see here on the y-axis top panel, touch experience in the past week, bottom panel, lack of touch, and in terms of anxiety and loneliness. And first we can see that the more the intimate touch that was experienced in the past week, the less the anxiety and the loneliness. And we see the opposite, well, we see similar results, but in opposite direction in terms of lack of touch, our computer variable. And this suggests that the more the intimate touch deprivation, the more the anxiety and loneliness. And we also, at some point, so for instance, for loneliness, when trying to include anxiety in our model, intimate touch still predicted loneliness, but this was not the case for anxiety, which suggests that the effects of touch on loneliness are above and beyond the effects of touch and anxiety. So which kind of touch did we desire to experience more as lockdown days increase? Well, it seems that the more the days of practicing social distancing, the more the intimate touch is missed right here, even though it was still the most experienced during the pandemic. And of course, this was not the case for friendly or professional touch. And finally, we had explained, well, I had explained already that the way we crave or want touch during the pandemic might depend on attachment style. And in fact, people might not even want to experience touch during COVID. And this indeed seems to be the case for attachment avoidance. And the higher individuals scored in attachment avoidance, the less they wanted to experience touch during COVID-19. And interestingly, this was particularly for intimate touch. And in contrast, the more the attachment anxiety, the more people wanted to experience touch, and particularly friendly touch. And here we are halfway through our talk, more or less, and I think Louise will take over. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Mariana. Indeed, I'm going to sum up what you said, and which resonates very well with the past talks we saw, in particular, the one just before from Anouk and Merle. So far, we have shown that affective touch reduces social pain, that intimate touch is reported as the type of touch most craved during social distancing, and such effect being more prominent as the days practicing social distancing increases. And moreover, that intimate touch is reducing feeling of loneliness and anxiety. And here again, we can make a parallel with findings on familiar touch as reducing loneliness that has been found by the other teams. But from there, we can wonder, what about people who do not have access to physical interactions, either due to the pandemic, but we could maybe expand to other social isolation in other contexts. So in the same study, we also wanted to answer the question whether we could find a way to reduce anxiety of social distancing and find a way to substitute touch. So I will go over the results and first, like, our questions. So first, we thought of 3 ways of studying and trying to find a way to substitute touch. So first of all, we thought of vicarious touch. So just watching tactile interactions can be a way of substituting touch and have the same relaxing effect. We thought of using self-touch, so asking participants to touch the forearm at a CT optimal speed, trying to boost the CT system and affective touch. And thirdly, we also tried to ask participants whether they had used other kind of potential substitutes, such as having a bath, hugging teddy bears, like using more soft fabrics than before, or petting pets like cats more than before, and so on. So first of all, what did we do for studying vicarious touch, and why so? So as has been mentioned today before, that actually, yes, there is a crucial role of touch for social communication and well-being, but it's not only the case for active touch, but also for observed and vicarious touch. Indeed, for example, the study by Morrison in 2011 showed that at the behavioral level, we see that actually affective touch seen or felt is rated as more pleasant than CT suboptimal touch, and shared also some similar regions like the insula in terms of brain areas. So it seems, and also like more recent work by Ebish and colleagues have shown this impact of vicarious touch on similar ways than active touch. So this shared pleasantness and general activation for vicarious touch and observed and felt touch kind of gave us the hint that maybe just watching tactile interactions could reduce or help and substitute touch. So that's why we ask participants to watch different types of video. So either human tactile interactions or human pet interactions or human robot interactions. And we ask them to rate the anxiety before watching this video and after watching this video, so using the STAI, but also to rate the loneliness before watching these videos. We also ask them to be able to compare between these three types of tactile interactions. So how pleasant was it to watch the video? Was this video soothing? To what degree they felt that watching this video could be a substitute for feeling touch? And how much they would wish to have this kind of touch in their life right now. And also as a control, we wanted to see whether it influenced how they felt right now. So on a scale from very calm to very stressed. So the first results that we saw, it's the impact on anxiety and loneliness. So first of all, when we look at the STAI results, so the anxiety levels pre compared to post watching these videos, it has been significantly reduced. So watching overall these videos is reducing the anxiety in participants. Moreover, when really interestingly, we can see that when we look at how people feel lonely and how relaxing was to watch the videos, so comparing post minus pre, the anxiety levels, we can see that participants that felt the most lonely were also the one that felt more relaxed and had a more relaxing effect of watching this video. So that the more lonely and the less anxious you are after watching videos compared to before, suggesting this relaxing effect of vicarious touch. In terms of comparing the different type of tactile interactions, so human-human versus human-pet or human-robot interactions, it seems that here in terms of pleasantness, the videos with pets was the most pleasant to watch, but also the rated as the most soothing. So it seems that watching tactile interaction with robots was less pleasant and less soothing. In terms of how much they thought that this type of interactions could be a substitute to feeling touch, it seems that the most rated and the most potential was also, again, the human-pet interactions in comparison to the two others. And even though actually in average it was below 50, so not that much of a substitute with a high variability. Then when we ask them how much they wish to have this kind of touch right now, we can see that they wish to have very high human-human interactions, but also human-pet interactions in comparison to human-robot interactions. So vicarious touch with pets and humans are equally making people wish to experience this touch. Finally, we had also another questions with this vicarious touch is that we had noticed that around us when asking people, and maybe you have noticed that, is that sometimes some people have this kind of awkwardness feelings when we are watching people interact on TV or like just even in the streets. So we wondered whether does this awkwardness feeling could modulate the calming effect that watching this video with human-human interaction could have. And indeed, that's what we found, that we have a really strong correlations between the two, meaning that the more awkward it felt to watch the human-human interaction, the less the calming effect in watching the human interaction had. So even if we were to control with how much they felt pre. Then we wondered whether self-touch could have an effect. So to do that, we asked participants to stroke the forearm in the same time as watching and in the same pace as the videos on the screen. And this at CT optimal speed. And we asked the same questions about pleasantness, soothing effect, wanting this touch, awkwardness, and like how stressed or calm they felt. And what we observe is that actually, when we compare to so the self-touch to the watching human-human interactions, the self-touch was less pleasant than watching human-human interaction, and also less soothing. And similarly, they wish this kind of touch much less than a real, like just even watching. So this vicarious human-human interaction. And they felt more awkward to watch these videos, to do this self-touch in comparison to watching human-human interactions. So they wish to be more touch like human-human interactions in comparison to just being alone, which kind of makes sense. But interestingly, what we can see is like in comparing the feeling before and after the self-touch, it seems that more people are lacking touch, the more the calming self-touch is, and the same with missing touch. So it seems that even though overall it has like a less effect than vicarious touch, it still has a calming effect overall in people lacking touch. Then the third question we asked whether we could find other substitutes, and that's why we asked participants to rate how much and what type of touch substitute are people using during COVID. And so we asked them how much they were using these different categories. So having a bath, swimming, touching fabrics, hugging teddy bears, petting pets, having a massage, and self-touch. How much they were doing this before, but also during in the past week, so during COVID. And what we can see is that during versus before, people were having more bath, but they were swimming less because probably swimming pools were closed. They were touching less soft materials, which is probably surprising, and hugging less teddy bears and pets in the same way. So overall, there is less use of touch substitute during COVID, which is quite surprising, and I would be interesting to see what you think about this. Then no difference in self-touch, actually. Then we also ask how likely you would to be used devices that could be kind of a touch substitution. So to have kind of long distance touch interactions, like instant message, send mood messages like tactile mood or tactile hug, or even using touch in VR. And it seems that it's the results, so I'm rating from not at all to totally, overall, like they were less very keen on using this kind of device than people being keen to do so. So there is lots of variability, and not everyone is ready for virtual touch, nor the use of robots. So to conclude, it seems that intimate touch is most craved and reducing feeling of loneliness and anxiety. Vicarious touch, especially human-pet interactions, have a calm and reduces anxiety. The more lonely and more lacking touch, the more beneficial vicarious touch and self-touch are. And finally, in terms of other type of substitute and the use of technology, we have kind of mixed results, and we need to look deeper to understand the differences, individual differences. And overall, we really need physical touch, and vicarious or self-touch is not enough. So I wish we would be together and hugging, but unfortunately, we still have in virtual. And I would like to thank Katerina Fotopoulou, with whom we did this study, and obviously Mariana, with whom I'm presenting, and you for listening. Thank you.
No, thank you, Louise, and thank you, Mariana, for your wonderful presentation. It's great to see where this data is going, and thank you so much for organizing it in such a easy way to follow. I much nicer than being walked hand in hand through those results. So thank you very much for that. We do have some questions, a lot from me. So I'm going to check, and I think maybe I'm going to give you Rochelle's question first, actually. Rochelle asks, is the self-touch vicarious touch difference like what is seen in the social softness illusion?
Interesting question. I would not have thought of comparing actually this doing this parallel. But it's interesting. Yeah, I really haven't thought about it like that. But it's true that actually maybe because we are it's self-touch, so we are expecting. So it's probably obviously having less, the reduced expectancy, like highest expectancy actually, but reduced pleasantness of this self-touch. Probably, it would be really interesting to compare both actually in terms of even like a brain basis, like what is stimulated when you just watch a different type of interaction and self-touch.
We have another question coming in saying, thank you for your awesome talk. He's wondering, this is Jay Huang Bai, I'm wondering what if watching human interaction videos, so the vicarious touch videos, and feeling touch from pet or self at the same time, so these multi-sense stimuli will be would boost and result in more robust pleasantness ratings. And I think we would all say probably yes. I know that we're currently running a study with people with depersonalizations, and we have them watching the vicarious images or the videos and doing self-touch, and we see a boosting effect even in those populations. So I assume you would agree.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I had a quick question, if I may. I'd be just curious to hear what you think this awkwardness is. There's a question in the social touch question about public displays of affection, which I think taps into that a little bit, that sort of, I don't want to, see you do those sorts of things out in public. But I'd be curious, what do you think that awkwardness is? What is that mechanism? What is it? What lies behind it? If social touch is this thing that we're typically programmed to see as rewarding, as something we should seek out to soothe us or make us feel connected, what is this awkwardness?
It's probably I would say like both, probably like a double thing. On one hand, it's like, okay, we have so much pressure from like politicals, like, okay, no, we need physical distancing. Actually, tactile interactions are banned. So it's kind of like creating this, okay, we should not do that. It's not proper, like it's not appropriate to do so anymore. And so it's kind of, I think creating this awkwardness. But in the same time, I think it's mixed with people attachment styles, as Mariana showed that it could be mediated by kind of individual differences. And I don't know if you have something.
Yeah, so I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the awkwardness was also higher for the robots videos, was it not?
Yes, yeah.
And I think we're also not used to, or probably not ready for experiencing that kind of touch. And we're not getting it in this normal, what we're used to. And then we just see these videos about what might become or the future. It might just be also like quite anxiety provoking and even awkward to watch. Mm-hmm. I think there's also that.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have one last question from Chris, but I'm cognizant of the time. So I'll just tell you his question. Maybe if it can be answered quickly, then we'll do that. So Chris says, thank you for the very nice talk. I was wondering whether you also looked at what kind of vicarious touch individuals liked most. So stroking, hugging, or holding. So types of touch rather than the social source of touch, which I think has been a big focus.
Actually, it's a very good point. We haven't crossed the data. Like the first part and the second part of the study, but it would be interesting to see whether people like craving more intimate touch, for example, or craving more friendly touch could modulate the calming effect that watching interactions could have.
Okay, great. Well, without further ado, I'm going to say thank you to you both for your wonderful.
No, thanks a lot for inviting us, and very great.
Just super clear. I'm sure there'll be more questions coming in, so I do keep watching the live stream chat. To everybody who is joining us through YouTube, please continue sharing your wonderful questions with us. It's the best way to push this field forward by comparing and contrasting, asking the questions that haven't been asked. So please feel free to do that. Just pop something into the chat. I wish you both very well, scattered across the globe, and we look forward to seeing the paper out in publications soon.